Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lecture, we'll be discussing Django templates. Templates are a key part to understanding how Django really works and interacts with your website. Later on, we will learn about how to connect templates with models so that you can display data created dynamically taken straight from your database. However, for now, let's focus on the basics of templates and later on template tags. The template will contain the static parts of an HTML page, parts that are always the same. You can think of it almost as the scaffolding or skeleton of the page. Then there are template tags, which have their own special syntax. This syntax allows you to inject dynamic content that your Django app's views will produce, affecting the final HTML that the user sees. To get started with templates, you first need to create a templates directory and then a subdirectory for each specific app's templates. At least by convention, that's how we're going to do it here. It goes inside of your top-level directory. So in our example, we'll have something that looks like this: the first project folder or directory, then we'll create a new templates folder, and inside of that, we'll have a first_app folder or directory. The next step is to let Django know of the templates by editing the dir key inside of the templates dictionary in the settings.py file. So inside the settings.py file for the project, there's a variable called templates, and it's a dictionary. And inside that dictionary, there's a string, dir, which stands for directory, and that's what we need to edit to let Django know where the templates are. However, there's an issue with this that we have to deal with before we can actually edit that templates variable. We want our Django project to be easily transferable from one computer to another, but the dir or directory key is going to really require a hard-coded file path. And that means we're going to have a conundrum. We can't really hard-code a file path with our username if we want to easily share this project or application with other users. And then we have the whole issue of different operating systems. Someone using a Mac isn't going to be able to use the same file path settings as someone using a Windows computer. So the question is, how do we actually resolve this? Well, this is where the power of Python comes into play. We can use Python's OS module to dynamically generate the correct file path strings, regardless of whosever computer you're using or whatever operating system you're using. If you want to check this out, you can import OS with Python and then try out something like the following: print __file__, or print os.path.dir name and then pass in that file tag. And we're going to actually show you examples of this right when we're done with this presentation. But we're going to be using this OS module to feed the path to the dir key inside of that templates dictionary. Once we've done that, we can create an HTML file called index.html inside of the templates first app directory. Inside this HTML file, we will insert template tags along with normal HTML. And these template tags are also sometimes known as Django template variables. These template variables will allow us to inject content into the HTML directly from Django. Now, as a quick note, these template tags can be a little intimidating for beginners. And the reason for that is because they don't look exactly like HTML, and they don't look exactly like Python either. They're kind of this new pseudo mix between the two. So they're a little intimidating at first, and you may find them confusing when you're first dealing with them. But don't worry, we're going to be working with them often enough that by the end of this course, you'll feel really comfortable calling template tags. So as a quick note, don't be intimidated if you see this thing come out of nowhere, but we will have a full understanding of template tags as we progress through the course. And we'll start off slow and steady so you can get comfortable with them in your own time. So this is now starting to really reveal the power of why we should even be using a web framework. Django will be able to inject content into the HTML, which means we can later on use Python code to inject content from a database, which we'll learn about when we learn about models with Django. In order to achieve all of this, what we will use is a new function called the render function, and place it into our original index function inside of our views.py file that we've been working with. So I know I've been talking a lot, so let's now actually jump to the Atom text editor and code through everything that we just discussed. Alright, here I am back at the Atom text editor. Now before we get started actually creating our templates, what I want to do is quickly talk again about those dynamic paths, using Python's OS module to actually generate dynamic paths so you don't have to worry about giving this file to a computer that's on another operating system. What we can do here is under first project, open up our settings.py file. And you'll notice that actually at the top, Import OS has already been imported for you, and there's a base directory, and this basically builds the paths inside of the project. And if we actually just run this file, we can explore what these file paths actually are. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to change directory to first project. That way I'm under first project, and then right now I will say Python settings.py. Hit enter, and we shouldn't see any output because we're not printing anything out. So we can run it. Now let's actually print stuff out and explore what it actually is. We'll start off with this file. And this is essentially just a special key indicating the settings.py file. So if I save this and run it now, I get settings.py as my file output. So that's the actual file. And now let's print out this, the os.path.absolute path to this. So I can just copy and paste this from here. Copy that, and then paste it here, save this, and now let's run that. And here we can see it printed out my actual full file path. So here I'm under C, users, my name, desktop, my Django stuff, first project, settings.py. And this is the sort of thing we're going to be using to actually feed in file paths. So we will feed them in directly from Python instead of typing out something like this. And then finally, we can see what this base dir is. So this whole thing has been set up as a variable already, conveniently for us, so we can use it later. And I'm going to save this and then actually just print out base directory. And we can see here when we print out the base directory, it prints out the directory that leads directly to the first project. So this most upper directory. With this base_directory variable, we can use it to conveniently call our new templates directory that we're about to create. Let's first create that directory and then show you how you can create the template directory. Under the top directory of first project, I will right-click and then add in a new folder, and I will call this folder templates, all lowercase. And here I can see I have a new templates folder. Right now, it's empty. And then I can use this base directory and add onto it templates. Now you may be tempted to do something like this as a simple add-on. Maybe / and then templates. But that's actually not going to work for many reasons. One is stuff may be treated as an escape character. And two, this isn't going to work for all operating systems. If you're on a Linux or Mac, maybe your / will go the other way, etc. So what you're going to do is use os.path.join to actually join these two. So we're going to put a comma here, and now instead of calling print, I will call os.path.join. And this will actually join these two together. And let's show you what that looks like when I say print. I'm going to save this and then run settings.py again. And here I can see the full directory for my local machine to that templates folder. And in this case, I'm not actually going to print this, but actually save this as a new variable. And this variable is going to be called template_dir. So template_dir. So that's the template directory. Let's save that. And then we're going to edit the directory. So if we scroll down here, still in the settings.py, I'm going to go past the installed apps, go past the middleware, and here under templates, I'm going to pass in for the directories. So remember, this is just essentially a dictionary type object, and here's this key, directories. Inside of it, I will pass in that template_dir variable we just made, and we can put in a comment there, and then save this. All right, so here we have everything set up, ready to go, with the paths going to be concatenated correctly. Now let's move on to the next step of actually adding a template. Within our template directory, we're going to right-click, put in a new file, and we will call this file index.html. And inside of this, I will just put in my regular HTML code, and we can set this title to be something like first app, save that, and then we're actually going to put in a little bit of information here in the body. We'll put in a header and say something like, hello, this is index.html. Save that, and then we're going to show you what a template tag looks like. And to make it really obvious how it's going to work, we'll give it a name that makes it very clear. So as far as the syntax for a template tag, at least the very first one we're going to do, you have essentially two sets of these curly brackets on each side, and then the actual variable you're going to pass in. In this case, we'll call this variable insert underscore me, so that we can actually see that we're inserting stuff using Django. So I'm going to save this. Again, very simple HTML file, except what might be a little confusing is this template tag right now. And don't worry if you find it a little intimidating because it's kind of weird and new. We will see this more and more as we go throughout the course. Now what we need to do is actually connect this variable, insert me, to our actual project and our application. And the way we're going to do that is by editing the views.py file of our first underscore app. So we will come here to views.py, and here we have the index. It takes in a request, returns an HTTP response, hello world. Instead, what we're going to do now is notice we have from Django.shortcuts import render. That should already be there by default, but if you don't have it, go ahead and type that in. And now what we will do is actually edit this function. And we're going to say something like this. We'll say create a dictionary, and we will call it my underscore dictionary, or whatever you want to call it. And then here, this is the importance part, we'll have a key value pair. And in this case, we need this key to match the variable that we created over in that template tag. So in that case, it was insert me, and we'll just have it be a string and say something like, hello, I am from views.py. We will save that, and then we're going to return, and this is where we can actually use the render function. And in this case, for the render function, we're going to pass in, it takes in the request, and then it takes in as a string where you actually want to show this. So again, that first parameter is just really the template we wish to use. And then the next thing I need to add in is the actual file itself, index.html. And then here, as a third argument, is the context. And this is basically going to link up what we're passing in here to our index.html file. And we're actually going to change this in a little bit. We'll create a subdirectory, but I'll explain that right after we test this out to make sure it all worked. So here, whoops, that shouldn't be a string. We'll pass in that dictionary we just created. And then we will save all of this. And now let's actually make sure this all worked out, and then we'll explain it and show you why you should edit this just a little bit by actually referencing the specific application. So let's run this, make sure it all worked out, and then we're going to explain and do a little quick review. So I'm going to back out of CD, and under first project I will say python manage.py run the server. Hit enter, and it looks like our server is running, so let's just copy and paste this. And as always, I'll bring in my browser. And then bringing in my browser over here, look what we get. We say, hello, this is index.html, and then we say, hello, I am from views.py. So we have the original header that is from index.html. If we look at index.html, we would find it there. And then we see this little message, hello, I am from views.py. So this is pretty much the amazing part of what we're doing here. We are actually inserting using Django. We say, hello, I'm from views.py, and using that template tagging, I can then pass that in. Now, a quick note, what we want to do is actually separate out our templates per application. So what I should do is this. Under my templates, I'm going to create a new folder and name it after my application, first app. And then I will move index.html into first app. And that way we keep our code modular. And the next thing I have to do is come back to views.py, and here I will call first underscore app, and then actually call the index there. And this slash should actually go the other way. And this slash is okay to go that way because this is basically what your browser is going to be reading. So we will save that, and let's check it again, make sure everything worked, and let's go ahead and, just to make sure everything worked, change this. So say something like, now I am coming from first app index.html. Save this, and let's bring in back that browser, make sure it all worked. And I just refreshed the page, and now I see this. Now I'm coming from first app index.html. Okay, great. Looks like everything worked out, and our templates are good to go. So let's break down everything we just did real quickly, just so we get a full understanding of how the basics of templates work. I'm going to minimize this. All right, first thing we had to do was create essentially our templates directory. And inside that templates directory, you should create a directory for each application. And then inside of that is where your actual HTML files are going to go. And later on, we'll see how to incorporate things such as JavaScript and CSS. Because we've created this templates directory, we need to let settings.py know about it. And the way we did this is we took advantage of a couple things. One was the import OS and Python's operating system. And then we had the template directory. And we used Python's OS module to say os.path.join and join the space directory to that templates that we just created. And you'll always want to use os.path.join instead of something more manual. That way this code can run on any operating system. Once we've done that, we come back here to views and we learned how to use import render, which is something we're going to be using a lot more often than just a simple HTTP response. And then with the render function, we can create a dictionary, and this dictionary is then going to have the actual content that we want to inject into that index.html. And it takes in the key, and this key is going to be the variable that we pass into that template tag. In this case, we just called it insert me to make it really obvious. And now here, I say now I'm coming from first app index, etc. And in the render, we pass in the request, pass in the actual HTML, and then for the context, we pass in this dictionary, and then it will read in the keys when it actually wants to inject stuff into this index.html file. All right, now I know that was certainly a lot and a lot of new things, but don't worry, as we continue on throughout this course, this is going to feel more and more comfortable for you. Okay, hope you enjoyed that lecture, and I will see you in the next one.